If I had to ask you guys, what is the one thing that I've been saying for the longest time and have said the most? I know. Okay, the one that Misty said is impossible. We're going to change the world. All right, so several years ago, there was this town, and the town started having financial difficulties, right? And they didn't know how they were going to keep going, as a town. But they had this really nice river that ran through the town. And so one day at one of the town meetings, one of the council members said, why don't we become like a fishing town? We got this great river, it's got fish flowing through it, and we can start catching the fish, and we can sell them the fish. We can have fish markets, we can do community fish fries, but we can have this whole industry surrounded around fishing. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. Why hadn't we ever thought about that? So then all the leaders of the town, they began kind of researching. They've been going like different seminars and getting on the internet and finding out how to fish, where to fish, when to fish, what kind of rods to use, what kind of lines to use, what kind of bait to use. And they did all this talking about fishing. And then one day this little boy in the town went out to the river and he went fishing and he caught a fish. So then they had the little boy go around telling them how he caught the fish, where he caught the fish, what time of day it was, what kind of rod he used, what kind of line he used, what kind of reel he used, what kind of bait he used. And then the town ran out of money and they went bankrupt. And then they all looked at each other and they said, what the heck happened? We had this great plan about how we were going to save the town. And the little boy said, yeah, but all you did was talk about fishing. You never actually fished. And that story has gotten me kicked out of numerous community groups. I have been asked to no longer participate as a volunteer in certain committees in the city of Elyria because I shared that story, and I was sharing it in a sense of all you guys are doing is sit around talking about fishing. You're not actually fishing, and why nothing in our communities change because all we ever do is talk about it. And I am not a talker. I'm a doer. But then this week, I was convicted with the fact that for 10 years now, 2013 was the first time I said a small church of 20 people in Grafton, Ohio can change the world. 10 years now, I've been talking about how we change the world. Just talking about it. Just talking. Just saying it, waiting for it to happen, like it doesn't take us actually going out into the world intentionally doing things to change the world. So that was a conviction I had this week. And so then I began thinking about, oh my gosh, I've been going around to different committees and different places and different, volunteer recruitment committees for whatever community service organization I was a part of a variety of different times and chastising them for talking, and yet here I am, and the one job that I'm paid to do, and all I'm doing is talking about it. So there's a conviction there. So then I started thinking about, well, dang, I never actually thought about how to change the world. I just have always had this conviction that we're going to change the world. And I just stopped there. So what I think we should do is I think we should have some conferences about how to change the world. And I think we should go ahead and meet with other people who have changed the world and figure out what they did to change the world. Because that would work well, right? We can talk about changing the world, or we can just go change the world. And I'm tired of talking. I mean, I love talking. Talking is, I just love it. You know what I mean? You put Doug and I in a room, we're just sitting there for 3 hours and there's never a moment of silence, right? We just love talking. Love talking to people. Love asking people questions. Love having people ask me questions. Love talking. I'm not saying we stop talking altogether, but we stop talking about changing the world. So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about this, and the thing that kept hitting me all week long was walk in a manner worthy of your calling. Walk in a manner worthy of your... How do we change the world? By walking in a manner that's worthy of our calling. So, the book of Ephesians, chapter 4, verse 1, because it also dawned on me last week, I never once opened the Bible. I think that's the first time that's ever happened. I didn't feel good about it. So we're going to make sure we're staying in the scriptures this week, because that's where we get a lot of our guidance. Not all of our guidance, a lot of our guidance. A lot of wisdom in the pages of these books. It says, I, therefore, a prisoner of the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to the one hope that belongs to all. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father, who is over all, through all, and in all. But grace was given to each according to the measure of Christ's gifts. Therefore it says, and he goes on. So first thing he says, walk in a manner worthy of your calling. So I was thinking about that, and I've been thinking about that, and one of the things that I've been really trying to focus on is how do we take these 2,000-year-old texts written by people who for the most part were illiterate. They didn't have an understanding of quantum physics. They didn't have an understanding of biology. They didn't have an understanding of neurology. But yet they were talking in a way that made it feel like sometimes they did. Because they were saying things, and even Jesus would say, like, I speak in parables because there's certain things that certain people just aren't going to understand. What I'm saying is for those who have understanding. And later on in Revelation, John Revelator says that he who has understanding hear the words that I am saying. And that's why for a couple thousands of years, nobody has ever understood what Revelation meant, except for a few people that were usually killed or burned at the stake or whatever, because they had an understanding. So when we start thinking about what does it mean to walk in a manner worthy of your calling, well, what calling? What was I called to? How about you were called to exist? How about walking in a manner that's worthy of your existence? Because all of us, by chance, were the ones who were called. There's millions and millions and millions of sperm cells. You were the one that got through. If any of the other cells would have gotten through, you wouldn't have been you. But that one cell was the one that was called out and sent in to be harvested, to be created, to become you. That is a miracle in and of itself. And that is how you're living your life today, worthy of that one cell being called out into existence. And then you survive 9 months in the womb. Doesn't always happen. How many people here know somebody who's had a miscarriage? How many people here know somebody who had a stillborn child? So just making it the 9 months is a miracle. Are you walking in a manner that is worthy of you surviving the 9 months in the womb? How many people know somebody who had a kid die of SIDS? Right? Not as common, but it happens. Just making it to 6 months. I remember the first 6 months of Madison's life, I was a wreck. I remember the first night, 6 weeks, the first 6 weeks. So I remember the first night, it was a Saturday night. I had to preach, right? So I'm preaching on Sunday. Madison is just days old. Well, a couple weeks old. Right? And it was probably like midnight. She woke up, and it was my turn. I got to get up and feed her and put her back to sleep. Jessica did it the last shift. It's my turn. So I wake her up. She wakes me up. Really? She was awake. I didn't wake her up. She woke me up. I fed her bottle. I was out in the living room in her old house. I put her in this little swing we had. Ed and Dory got this really nice swing. And I put her in the swing, and she fell back asleep. And then I fell asleep on the couch. And I woke up at 7 in the morning, total panic, she was dead. I mean, what other explanation can I have for her going from midnight to 7 in the morning without waking us up? The only rational explanation I can think of is that she died. I panicked, I woke up and I started shaking her. Well, then she woke up and got really angry. What are you doing, Dad? First night of my life, I slept through the night and you waking me up. And ever since then, I've had to fight with her every morning to wake her up. That's what it was. That's where it came from. I traumatized you as an infant. And I remember, I came in that morning, and you all might remember Bill Ramey. Bill Ramey was already here when I got here, and I'm still just kind of frazzled. And he's like, "Is you okay?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Madison slept through the whole night last night. I was terrified." And he was like, kind of looked at me kind of weird. I'm like, you didn't understand. It's freaked out. But it's a miracle. Every night, now Jessica and I went to bed and our kids were still alive. We looked at each other like, oh my God, it's a miracle. How did they survive the day? We don't know. But yet they did. And all of us survived. And it's a miracle that we've made it this far. Some of us have been through some pretty traumatic experiences. Some of us have made it through some very difficult times in our life. Are you walking in a manner that's worthy of you getting through what you've gotten through? What was the first age Misty was told she wouldn't make it to? 12, 13? They said she wouldn't live to be 12. Then they said, when she got to 12 and she was still alive, and they said, well, she won't make it to 18, right? Then they said she wouldn't make it to 30. Well, here she is. I'm not going to say exactly, but somewhere between 50 and 60, right? And she's still got another good 10, 15, 20 years in her. Is she walking in a manner worthy of her condition? She's made it. She survived. Think about Jesse. Jesse's had some difficulties. How long was Jesse supposed to live?
Because of the kidney disease.
Right.
He did the first year in his lifetime. I'm glad he got past 1 year.
I remember the one story, I think you did a testimony really early on when you got here, that he wasn't supposed to live to have been a teenager. They didn't think, here he is, in 34, 36. You know what I mean? And he's had some difficulties in life. But yet, does he walk in a manner worthy of his existence? Right? And we think about, Misty and the impact that she's had on her nieces and nephews and the impact she's had on her family. We think about Jesse and the impact that he's had on the workshop. And my sister's a teacher at the Murray Ridge School. And so I know what it means to them when Jesse comes in on St. Patrick's Day dressed as a leprechaun, bringing smiles to their faces and the joy that he brings to the workshop. Right? He's walking in a manner worthy of his calling. He's walking in a manner worthy. Once again, he's got the difficulties. But yet he still lives his life making you all laugh at me, making people laugh at the workshop, bringing joy to the kids who also have difficulties by dressing up as an elf or a leprechaun or whatever he does to bring joy. Well, weren't you an elf one year too? You were an elf one year. Oh, that's for here. I didn't say. I remember a picture of you in an elf costume. Right, and so we start looking in our lives and we start asking ourselves, is how I'm living my life worthy of me surviving all the things I've survived? Or am I just living my life? Because if we begin to walk, once we realize we want to walk in a manner that's worthy of our calling, but we also want to walk it with humility. I'm amazing at that part. I always tell people, I'm sorry, y'all can disagree with me. Humility is my best attribute. I'm so good at it. Gentleness. You can be a little more gentle sometimes. Patience. I'm amazing at patience. I'm so good at patience. Bearing with one another in love. Eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. This is where it gets interesting because he says there's one body. in one Spirit, just as you were called to the one hope that belongs to your call, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father who is over all, through all, and in all. And so here we go, and here we have the Apostle Paul saying there is no division. There's only one Spirit. There's one body. There's one Lord. There's one faith. There's one baptism. There's one hope. All of it is one. There's not people who are out of the body and in the body. They're not people who serve one God and people who serve a different God. There's not some people who have one hope and people have another hope. There's only one. Everything belongs. There's only one body. All of us are connected. All of us exist together. All of us are unified in one. And our job is to work in a manner worthy of the recognition, eager to maintain the unity and the bond of peace and in love. So is what I'm doing, is how I'm living, is how I'm walking my life, maintaining unity. Am I helping people recognize and understand that we're all part of the one body? That we're all under the one God who is above all, in all, through all, in all. There's that's the all word that a lot of Christians don't like. Because once again, here's another one of those places where those fundamentalist pastors will tell you all doesn't mean all. That all means all, this all means some, and I know the difference because I studied Greek. I know the difference because I took a theology class that told me sometimes all means all and sometimes all means some. I'm sorry. I ain't buying what you're selling. All means all. All, always means all. So when he says, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father who is over all, through all, and in all. So, I'm walking in a manner worthy of maintaining a bond of peace, helping people recognize that there is only one body. There is no inside and outside. We're all inside. There is no separation between this God and that God. There's no separation by your spirit and my spirit. All of our spirits are connected. And we recognize this through frequency. We recognize this through energy. We recognize this through vibrations. Once again, this is not me just making stuff up. This is literally science telling us that everything is connected. I wish I could remember the phrase that scientists use, but one of the things that they do is they separate elements. There's this element's over here and this element's over here, and they're not connected at all physically, and they mess with this element and this element reacts. And that tells us that everything is connected through this frequency, that everything is connected through this vibration, that everything is connected through this energy. That there is nothing that separates it. No matter what we do, no matter where we go, no matter what we say, you cannot separate our connection to one another, no matter how hard the world tries to tell us we're separated. No matter how hard the world tries to tell us that there's people who live on this side of the line and there's people who live on this side of the line. Because they're the same people telling you that there's a line. Zoom out on Google Earth. There's no lines. They're all just imaginary. We made them up. A committee of elected officials down in Columbus said that people that live on that side of the street are in one congressional district and people who live on this side of the street are in another. Literally. I'm not making that up. That side of the street is a different congressional district than this side of the street because a human being drew a line on a map that you cannot see from space. It doesn't exist. I'm not saying sometimes these lines don't come in handy. Once again, they help maintain order and they're good and whatever. But they don't separate us. They don't divide us. They help maintain order in a society, which is good. I'm not saying we shouldn't have lines on maps. But we shouldn't have things that are going to cause division and separation. That is not walking in a manner worthy of our existence. Things that are worthy of us walking into our existence are things that are going to help people recognize the bond of peace. They're going to help people recognize the unity of all things. They're going to help people recognize the belonging to the one body, the fellowship that we have under one Lord and God, and that He is over all, through all. Once again, God moves through us. This is another passage that helps emphasize and helps us understand and recognize the movement of who God is. Because He's not just over us, He's through us, and He's in us. There's a movement that comes with God. And our job is to walk in a manner that's worthy of that movement, is to walk in that movement of bringing things together into a bond of peace. And I'm sorry, but most of the things in our world, most of the systems that we hold to be important, most of the systems that we think are valuable are only there to separate us. And I'm talking about politics. I'm talking about elections. I'm talking about political parties. I'm talking about sexual orientations. I'm talking about race. I'm talking about all the things that make us distinct from one another, but not separated from one another. We're supposed to have different races. We're supposed to have different languages. But we're not supposed to have division between our distinctions. There are some people who are supposed to see the world this way and people who are supposed to see the world that way. But they're not supposed to be divided because they're one. They're all connected. They all belong. Because when we divide each other, we're dividing God. And boy, oh boy, have we done a good job of dividing God. That God belongs to the Muslims, this God belongs to the Christians, that God belongs to the Jews. All those gods belong to the Hindus because they have like 300 million gods. You know what I mean? Those gods belong to those, and we literally, but there's only one God. I don't care what you call him. It, he, she, whatever you want to call God, doesn't matter to me because there's only one of them. And that God is above all, through all, and in all. I don't care what you call it. There's only one body. There's one Spirit, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one hope. And all of it is us collectively working together, walking in a manner that's worthy of our calling. And I'm not sure a lot of us do that. I'm not sure we walk in a way that's worthy of the miracles of our existence. We just live life. And we wait to die. Because that's where our one hope is. Our one hope isn't the unity of all mankind. Our hope is going to heaven when we die. Once again, find that in Scripture. Find that in the teachings of Jesus. Find that in the teachings of Moses. Find that in the writings of Joshua or any of the judges or any of the prophets of the Old Testament. Find that in the writings of Jesus. Find that in anywhere in Scripture. That our hope is in the afterlife. Not in the unity of all people. Not in the bond that brings us and unites us as human beings. To stand up against the systems that are here to divide us and to separate us and condition our minds that these divisions and separations are supposed to be there. I almost just went on a rant. I don't want to go on a rant. I got plenty of time to do it, though. I got up here like 5 till I got plenty of time to rant today, but I'm not going to do it. I don't want to go on another rant.
We started today with a song about shame. I got to sing with it. And while I was singing with it, I was reminded that I lived for decades in shame. But I didn't know what I was ashamed of.
Mm-hmm.
So I created excuses and reasons. I don't live there anymore. I'm just realizing that in the last couple of years of my life that I don't live there anymore. But I didn't know why I don't live there until I'm beginning to understand. It is because of what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am finding purpose, and I do want to be working with doing what I can become aware recently of some behaviors that not mine, the behaviors that are cloaked in silk foam. They're very damaging. They're destructive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what to do about it. But what you're telling me today is that I need to address it, and not just talk. I need to address it. I'm very grateful for what you're saying, because I needed out when I came from today.
Amen.
And I am grateful for that. But I still don't know exactly how to approach what to do. What I feel I need to do.
That's next. I haven't gotten to that part yet. I haven't gotten to that part yet. Because we're not just talking today, Doug. We're not just talking today.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about one of the things that Rob Guy told me a long time ago. He said you have to end every message with an activation. He says you never activate people. You just talk to them. You talk to them and you send them on their way. And I never knew what he meant. I never got it. Never clicked in me. And there are a couple times where I would try to force it. Right? And I said, no, I said, if I'm ever supposed to do it, it's just going to come to me naturally. And last night, I just got out of the shower, and I cut my hair and trim my beard up every other Saturday, right? And I was supposed to do it last night. This is my week to cut my hair and trim my beard up. I just didn't feel like it. I'll just take my normal shower, and I got out of the shower, and I was kind of flexing my new physique. You know what I mean? Kind of looking in the mirror, and see what I was told is, the guy that's been helping me, his name's Anthony. He's been here a few times. He does the breath work with us. He says that you're supposed to be flexing. You want to flex a lot because when you flex, it draws the blood into the muscles and helps the recovery of your muscles after a hard workout. So it's more than just looking good in the mirror, which I'm starting to say. But anyway, so I'm doing my flexing, and all of a sudden this thought popped in my head. Be kind to people. And I was like, well, you want to change the world, start by being kind to people. I said, how about you challenge people to do one random act of kindness every day? Every day, do one thing you wouldn't normally do to be kind. Here's the catch. To a complete stranger. Not to somebody here that you know. Not to a loved one. A random act of kindness to a complete stranger. So I got an example. Right? And I don't know, the things just started popping in my head, right? One of the things was, what could that look like? Well, I know Steve got to go to McDonald's a lot to get Misty her Diet Coke or whatever she wants from McDonald's, right? Misty's always got to have a Diet Coke from McDonald's, right? Well, how about Steve's at McDonald's, he pulls up to the drive-thru window and he says, I'm going to pay for the car behind me in line. They don't know him. He doesn't know them. They'll never know who did it, but they'll forever be touched by it. What's that?
I've done it several times. When you do that, you tell them, so this is what I tell them. The people behind you, tell them, God bless them, they have a good day, and,
I love you. Tell them, I love you. I did this because I love you. Not because God told me to do it. I did this because I love you. I don't know you, never met you, have no idea who you are, but I love you enough to buy your meal that's going to kill you because McDonald's is terrible for you. But another one, like you go out to eat one day this week, you go to a Blue Sky or wherever you go out to eat, and you're just sitting there paying, just having a conversation or whatever it is you do while you're eating, and somebody catches your attention. Table over there. For whatever reason, your attention is drawn to them. Call the server over and say, I want to pay for their meal. Not because God told me to do it. It's because I love you. All right? And there's a difference, because there's a difference when we do things because we're supposed to do them, or doing things because we want to do them. This is a hard thing for me to understand. There was a big difference when I would do the dishes because I thought Jessica wanted me to do the dishes. Well, I understand. Stay with me, babe. Don't. But it's different from me doing it because she wants me to do it and me doing it because I want to do it for her. It's a big difference. I'm not doing it because some being above is going to reward me for doing it. I'm doing it because I genuinely love you and I care about you. Right? And it doesn't always have to be money. You know what I mean? It could be your neighbors across the street that you've been there for 20 years and you've never really talked to, and you just go and bring their garbage cans in for them on trash day. Little, just random things we can do, because that's how we change the world. It isn't through talking. It isn't through telling people we love them. It's by loving people, and not loving people that we're supposed to love. It's not loving people who's easy to love. How many people here, and once again, maybe not, how many people here had somebody in your life that you were close to prior to 2016 and 2020 that you no longer talk to because they were voting for somebody that's different than the person you were voting for? And you no longer communicate with that person. You don't talk to that person anymore because they were this and I was that, or they got vaccinated and I didn't, or I got vaccinated and they didn't. And I don't talk to that person anymore because the way in which they, whatever. I'm not saying anybody of us have any of those people in our life, but maybe you do. And maybe this week you send that person a text and say, hey, is this thing about you and I love you. Hope you're doing well. Because we allowed things to divide us that shouldn't have divided us. And the only way to fix those divisions is by walking in a manner that's worthy of our existence. And the only way in which we walk in a manner worthy of our existence is if we're walking in a way that brings unity, that brings a recognition that we're all one. And the same God that is over me, in me, and through me is the same God that is over you and in you and through you. And once again, when I read that and it says that God is over all, through all, and in all, I don't read that as God is over me like some authority. I'm reading that as that God is all around. He's over me, He's in me, and He's coming through me. He's everywhere. He's not over me as like an authority. He's over me as in He's everywhere I am. He is all things. He is, there's nowhere I can go to not be around Him because He's always here, and He's coming out of here. Am I living that? So that is literally my challenge for us this week. You're not going to come back and report on it, but every single day, find a way to do a random act of kindness for a complete stranger. Could be something as easy as, a neighbor that you've never really talked to, don't really have much of a relationship with, just sending them a card that says, hey, I've been living across the street from you for a long time. I was thinking about you, just want to let you know that I love you and I appreciate you being your neighbor. Simple. Very simple. But we want to make sure we're doing it for complete strangers. Right.
Different versions of what I love you. And one guy I said that to, and I said, no, you don't understand. I love you the way God loves you. And you can say it in his face.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that you tell a big stranger, I love you, and
Right. Because it begins, and that's one of the things is this. So that complete stranger that hears "I love you" from a complete stranger doesn't know how to react to it. But then because of that, or maybe down the road they run into another one of us. That Bonnie says "I love you" to that guy yesterday at Home Depot. Well, then I see him today at Walmart, and it says, "Hey, man, I love you." Well, guess what's going to happen? Eventually, one day he's going to do that. And it's through these random acts of kindness, of us just letting people know that we love them. Not because God commanded us to tell them we love them. Not God told me to do this for you. I just love you. the world begins to change. It's not one big thing that's going to change the world. It's a million little things. You know, I've always talked about, I think it was a Rob Bell thing, the death by paper cuts. You know what I mean? Not all of us get that one big T trauma that ruins our life. A lot of them are just a bunch of little tiny paper cuts. He's been talking about in context as pastors and why pastors always fizzle out and pastors die off. And he says it's not because of one big thing that goes wrong in the church, but it's because of a million little paper cuts. A million little times that they were told the sermon wasn't good enough, or a million different times that they were criticized, or a million different times that somebody betrayed them or hurt them. And it's all these little tiny paper cuts, and eventually they bleed out, and eventually they die of blood loss. Not because of one big cut, but because of a million little ones. Well, the same rule applies for changing the world. We're not going to change the world by one big slash. We're going to change the world by one tiny little paper cut over and over and over and over. And then as those cuts accumulate, the dragon begins to die. The world becomes free. And we recognize the bond of peace that we're all in. We recognize the body that we all belong to. We recognize the one Lord, the one faith, the one baptism, and the one God and Father who is above all and in all and through all. And that's how we do it. When we're talking about it, it's time for us to start doing it. And we're going to start it this week. Every single one of you are tasked with one random act of kindness. And I don't care, you might not, get out much. You might not, get out of the house many times in a week, but you got a phone, and you can call somebody. Say, hey, I just want to call and let you know that I love you. Maybe somebody you haven't talked to in 20 years. Send a card to somebody, to your neighbor that you've never talked to, only spoken to a couple times. I can't come up with all the ideas. You're going to have to get creative. Think about it. And every day, be intentional. Wake up in the morning and, okay, what can I do today to let a total stranger know that I love them? And that's our task. And that's the assignment. That's the activation. Okay, so we're going to leave here. Total random act of kindness for a perfect stranger. Does that make sense? Do we think we can change the world this way? Look at Misty. Well, what I said before wasn't even a way. It was just, we're going to do it. How are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? Me and them are talking every Sunday is going to change the world. Morning.
My thinking is, if you do one kind thing to one person, that helps them out. So if you do kind good things to another person, you are changing.
Right, but there's this lady that gives Jesse static. What happens if Tuesday morning he walks in and hands her a thank you card? And it's a thank you card just for being her. I just want to thank you for being you. You think there's still going to be some static? You know what I mean? And so there's, like I said, there's just those little things that we can do, and they're going to seep out. Because the more we love people, the more those people are going to love people, and the more those people are going to love people. So, yep. I love you.